Welcome to Stars Matter, a recruiting podcast from The Athletic. I'm Mitch Light, joined by Ari Wasserman, and joined by Grace Rayner and Manny Navarro. We've got more. I'm stealing this line from Ari. We have more stars on Stars Matter. We have a robust recruiting staff at The Athletic, so we are
in our galaxy. You didn't say
you made
a
suggestion, Ari. I don't need to.
We have more stars in our galaxy.
I put my own spin on your suggestion, okay?
Well,
we have more stars in our galaxy. Is that what you want me to say?
Yes. Isn't that nice?
And stars matter. We are Grace and Manny are going to join us on a regular basis. Maybe some weeks it's three of us. Maybe some weeks all four. Maybe we'll just let Ari go for an hour by himself one week. But thanks.
I could.
Ari, well, I won't. I was going to say, Ari, how you doing? But I've already talked to you. Grace, welcome. How you doing today?
Thank you. I would listen to Ari for a full hour talking to the wall.
Okay, I wouldn't. But Manny, you doing okay?
I'm doing great. The only thing I'm sad about now is that I'm actually going to listen to the show while it's being recorded instead of being able to walk like I normally do and listen when I do my afternoon jogs and stuff. But, whatever. This is just as cool.
Yeah. Do you guys listen to yourself on podcasts? I did when we first started just to kind of see how we were doing. I might listen to segments, but I find it very difficult to listen to myself. What do you guys think?
Well, when I do my podcast, Wide Right on Miami, yes, I listen to it once to basically make sure there's no F-bombs in there or anything really bad. And then other than that, I don't listen to it again.
I don't. Well, I only listen when I think I said something stupid just to gauge how bad it was.
If you guys want, there's going to be a bonus episode of Stars Matter, and all it is me complaining about how South Carolina was defended in the women's Final Four.
Yeah, we will not. We have a lot to talk about. We will not be talking women's basketball. Although Grace, welcome back to the college football staff after abandoning us for 2 weeks covering women's basketball. Did a great job covering the Greenville. I guess they're called super regionals now because there's like 15 teams there and you were working every day. But welcome back.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be back.
So good show today. It's a lot to discuss. Big week for Ohio State. Michigan, as expected, landed a 5-star quarterback last week. We can now close the books on the 2023 class with Deuce Robinson's commitment to USC. We've got a high-profile 2024 quarterback who's set to announce this week, and we've got some intel from Manny, who was on the ground watching Florida State's 24 quarterback commitment, mailbag, and trivia. But I think we need to start with Ohio State. I was not expecting this. I think 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock yesterday, so it would have been on Tuesday night, tweets out, Ohio State gets a 5-star commitment and a shocking development, Ari. It's a 5-star wide receiver. It's almost comical. Like, it's great for Ohio State, but we keep talking about it. It's like, just get a 5-star linebacker or defensive tackle. It's just this run of wide receivers is absurd.
We'd have to go add this up, but I think Ohio State signed more 5-star receivers during Brian Hartline's tenure than like 90% of programs have signed in total.
Well, it's 14 top 100 receivers from 19 through 23. 14 top 100 from 19 through 23, and 2 more expected. I mean, unless one of these 5 stars falls out of the top 100, which we see guys fall, but we're not going to see them fall that far.
And like, they also kind of keep getting better. Like, I don't know if this is just like a development thing or if it just happenstance, but like, if you go and look at the receivers that have been drafted, like Marvin Harrison might be the best one. And then from what I understand, Manny, you probably would know this better than I would, but Jeremiah Smith, the one who's committed in the 24 class, is like the best prospect at the receiver position ever, I think. Number 2 overall nationally.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty ridiculous. Reminds me a lot of Andre Johnson, who was one of the greatest receivers to ever come out of Miami and number 3 overall pick. I think body-wise and just the way they sort of carry themselves, very similar from, in that capacity.
Now, so I lost my train of thought there, but that kind of goes back to what we're saying, Ari, all the time, is like, you keep stockpiling these players. They've had some 5-stars not pan out, but they always have elite ones because when you sign 3 or 4, top 100 or 5 stars a year, you're going to have 2 that do pan out. And then that's why they always have 2, the top 10 of the draft seemingly.
Yeah. And if you go look at a lot of the top 100 players that went to Ohio State, I don't know how many of them haven't panned out. Maybe 4 of them or 5 of them. And Chris Olave was a 3-star and he got drafted in the first round too. But is Jamison Williams, did he pan out? I mean, he did for Alabama. So, it's one of these things where it's like, can Ohio State pass its way to a national championship? And last year I got dangerously close to being able to do it, but you would like to see, you don't want to like internalize the news of 5-star prospect commits and then like be a downer. But I think that watching it manifest the way that it has been great. Also, I think that it needs to be spread around a little bit more, because you can't have 60% of your top 100 players that you sign be all at one position. So yeah, no, it's a nice get. I think Brian Hartline has a case, and this might be hyperbolic, but I was thinking about it last night. Has a single position coach in college football history, or at least in the modern era dating back to 2000, recruited their position better than he has? Like when you think about the sheer number of commitments and top 100 players he's gotten?
It's difficult because he's been there the whole time. Like Alabama's recruited some elite offensive linemen, but there's turnover there. Grace, off the top of my head, Clemson had a great run, and I guess still going. Defensive lineman there's been some coaching turnover, I guess, but I would say that it's not comparable to what Ohio State's doing at the wide receiver position, but in relative terms to how everyone else recruits, I'd say Clemson's defensive line recruiting over the last 6-8 years has been elite as well.
Yeah, I think Todd Bates, especially a couple of years ago, I think he made an argument as maybe one of the best recruiters in the country. Obviously now he's at Oklahoma with Brent Venables, but I don't know. I mean, even seeing Clemson's run of wide receivers and now seeing what Ohio State is doing and how this wide receiver U title has shifted between two teams that have seen a lot of each other in the past few years, I think has been really interesting. But I'm with you, Ari. I don't know that anyone else is doing what he's doing right now.
Well, there's a lot of teams.
Hold on 1 second, Ari. We haven't even said it's the receiver's name. I just realized it's Mylan Graham from New Haven, Connecticut. So I think it was a big Yale Ohio State battle there. They got him out from Yale. Like I said, he will be the 15th. This will be the 15th and 16th top 100 wide receivers at Ohio State. Go ahead.
There have been a lot of colleges who have had really dominant position rooms, and sent a lot of players from those rooms into the draft. Like when I think about elite level quarterback recruiting before Lincoln Riley, I think about Clemson too. Like if you go back and look, but I wonder just from a data driven standpoint, Manny, you're Mr. Spreadsheet. I'm going to call you that. How many people how many individual assistants have signed almost 15 or 16 top 100 players in a 5-year period by themselves? Like, just
Manny,
from
can
a
you look
data
that up while
standpoint,
Ari's
there's
talking?
no possible way.
Yeah, I'll start on that right now and be done in 3 weeks.
I don't think it's happened. I
think you're right, Ari. I don't think you're being hyperbolic. I mean, it's almost, and it's a position where you need, in each class, every school probably signs 2 to 5 wide receivers. It's not like quarterback where you're just signing one, or certain. I guess most positions you're signing multiple players. And one other Ohio State note, and this was not a surprise, after losing Jordan Marshall, the running back from Cincinnati, Muller, who committed to Michigan, Ohio State, I don't know, rebounds is the right word, but they get James Peebles, the running back from San Antonio, top 100 player as well. So did not sign a running back in last year's class. Was it Mark Fletcher who decommitted?
Right. And Miami stole him.
Yeah, Miami stole him. So definitely that was a need, a top flight running back in this class. So, we talked a lot about a couple of weeks ago about Michigan elbowing its way and maybe not replacing, but, doing some good things on the trail. But this kind of just tells us that Ohio State, they still got a lot of talent as well.
And Aaron Noland too, right?
I was going to say, Ari,
down the pike.
Is it going to be Aaron Noland?
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
Grace, have you talked to Aaron Noland? Because I know Manny and Ari have. Did you talk to him at a camp?
I talked to him at camp, and he didn't have his Ohio State or his Clemson offer at that point, but obviously both were formalities. And then we traded a few messages, but you guys have both talked to him more recently than I have.
Yeah, Ari, why don't you go and, the story was posted over the weekend or maybe Monday morning on Aaron Noland, who has emerged, and Manny's written about him, Manny saw him, has emerged as one of the, he's top 100. I don't know exactly what his ranking is, but the schools, when Ohio State prioritizes you, when Clemson prioritizes you, he's clearly one of the elite guys in the class.
Yeah, I don't know where he's going to go. I mean, I called him off of the heels of his visit to Ohio State because, you guys know this too. Like, recruiting is so interesting because, like, of how important the context of each kid is. And it's like, of course, a top 100 player is interesting because he's a quarterback who's probably going to, start for 2 or 3 years for whatever program he picks. But, like, contextually speaking, with Ohio State, with what happened with Dylan Raiola and, losing back-to-back years to Michigan and, people questioning whether or not Ryan Day has that program on track, like, them bouncing back from the Raiola decommitment and showing that they're still able to fill that position group the way that they have historically under him is just an interesting storyline, like, and that's kind of the way that, and I don't want to speak for all of us. I feel like this is the vision for this podcast. It's like we could go down a list and just say, well, here's who went to where, but like actually discussing the importance of, individual recruits and, the messages that those commitments and those recruitments send, I think is really, really huge. Plus, I can't stand the fact that college football season's only 4 months, so we have to compete year round. And I'm really excited to see how that pans out. I had a few recruiting coordinators hit me up asking me if he's going to Ohio State. He said he made up his mind. I did not ask him because it was my first time talking to him, like where he was going. I didn't want to put him in a position where he would have to trust me right off the bat. But he was just obviously excited about his most recent visit. I don't know if that means he's going there. You know how impressionable kids can be sometimes when they leave a place, they're super excited and, that's that. But, certainly a major priority for Ohio State's, 24 class. And I know probably the same thing for Miami, right, Manny?
No, absolutely. And, it's funny. I remember talking to him, it was right before a 7-on-7 down here in South Florida out in Fort Myers. And he kind of floored me because I asked him, I said, who are the coordinators you get along with the best? And he said Bobby Petrino. And I remember just sort of relaying that message.
Said that in Atlanta too.
Yeah, to Mitch. And I'm just like, Bobby Petrino, like who likes Bobby Petrino?
That's the first name you think of when how does he relate to an 18-year-old kid?
Right. So I was kind of floored by that. But yeah, I mean, look, I know Miami absolutely needs him. They really feel like they need to get a top 10 quarterback. They didn't do that. They got Emory Williams last cycle. So I think from Miami perspective, yes, he's like definitely number one on their board. And like you said, Ohio State, I mean, if they don't end up getting Dylan Raiola, which they're not going to do anymore, right, because he decommitted, I think, landing a guy like him really helps you continue to build a really strong class.
I need to correct myself. A note from Mike Zimmerman. Mylan Graham evidently is from New Haven, Indiana, not Connecticut.
Did you say Connecticut?
Yeah.
I made that mistake too in my head.
Yeah.
They got really good pizza there.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that Yale wasn't involved in the pursuit, but probably not. Yeah, so going into Indiana, not that Ohio State going into Connecticut would be a big deal because, Ohio State recruits nationally, but it makes a little bit more sense. The reason why
Aaron Nolan is also a big deal too, guys, is that I'm looking at the list right now, and outside of Raiola, there's only one other player, outside of Raiola and Nolan, a top 100 quarterback who has yet to issue a commitment. Yeah. So, those rankings kind of fluctuate, and as the Elite 11s and the summer camps come and go and there's more evaluation, that could change. But like Ohio State, in a year that they were building around their quarterback position, because Raiola is supposed to be the future in this class, like if they wound up not getting a top 100 player at that position in this class, I think that would be pretty detrimental to the supposed direction of what they thought was the case last November. So, I kind of feel like they're all in, but everyone's all in too. And like, never count out A&M, right? Like, I don't know if I'm still I still cannot fathom that they signed 18 top 100 players in a single cycle. So like whatever was in the secret sauce down there, I think we know might be in it, but if that's still humming, you never know what could happen. So I'm actually really excited for this revelation to see where he's going. And, I know a lot of people are on the edge of their seats trying to figure out what's going to happen. So it'll be fun. But if he does go to Ohio State, 3 top 100 players in a week is a pretty solid week.
Now this could, Clemson, and Grace can speak to this. They have, I don't know how unique it is, but they really, they recruit one quarterback at a time. Basically, they go down their list and who is the kid? I'm drawing a blank on his name. Who they thought it was down to him and Auburn and Clemson.
Walker White.
Yeah, Walker White.
White.
Not Walter White. Ari.
Is that what you call him, Ari?
Walter White.
That was a separate issue.
Say
Ari and I
my
had.
name.
Yes. Be careful what you put in Slack sometimes at work. No, just kidding.
You got in trouble.
No.
Yeah.
No,
I almost got in trouble. Yeah.
So, they prioritized Walker White, didn't get him. They're prioritizing Aaron Nolan. If they don't get him, like Ari said, there aren't a lot of quarterbacks left on the board. So Grace, could be interesting to see where Clemson goes. Now, you don't need to sign a quarterback every year. We know they got a 5-star last year. And there's the portal. Well, maybe it's a bad example because it's Clemson, but they are kind of one of those teams to watch because you just expect them to get a top 100 quarterback every year.
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see where they go if they don't get him. Because like you said, Mitch, they offer one at a time. And I think that's the way, too. We've been able to read some tea leaves in the past. When Clemson offers another quarterback, you can maybe read the tea leaves about where the guy they were targeting is heading. But yeah, I mean, they've got a little bit of a cushion in Vizina. Obviously, Klubnik's already on the roster. So I think they have a little bit of a security blanket. But Ari, I think it was you a couple of years ago. I think you got on a Zoom with Dabo and asked, like, do you recruit a backup quarterback? And he had said, like, you just try to stockpile as many 5-stars as possible, basically.
But if you go look at Clemson's pattern, it's like 5-star, 3-star, 5-star. It's every other year.
Yeah.
And maybe that's partly because it's hard to get back-to-back years of those players, but we've seen teams do it. So
Antonio wrote about that recently with USC. He asked Lincoln Riley that specific question because they're after
it's
Dylan
hard.
Raiola. Yeah.
And I think it's smart too. It's like, I like that Dabo said that. And I feel like if I were a head coach, I would try to get a 5-star quarterback every single year, no matter what.
Yeah.
But I asked that question before the days of the portal. So like the idea of what's the most efficient way for a coach to build a quarterback roster, knowing that people are going to leave every year if you do it the way that he said he does it. It's like, that's an interesting thought. Like, do you want to go get a 3-star guy who comes in and knows it's going to take 2 or 3 years to develop into a starter, or do you want to get the best player possible and then see half of them leave every other year when you have to name a new roster? So it's like, or name a new starter. It's a very interesting discussion of like what the most efficient way to build a quarterback room is. And, the portal, I don't think, is always going to be the answer for these big time programs. And it's like, if Clemson is in a position where it needs to go find a Sam Hartman type player to come to their program, then I think something's gone wrong there.
For sure. I don't know Dabo's coaching there. If we see Clemson getting a 6-year transfer quarterback from the portal, I don't know that Dabo Swinney is the coach at Clemson at that point.
Yeah. Manny too. Miami needs don't they? Am I forgetting somebody that they might have recently signed? But since Jake Garcia, they haven't had a 5-star.
No, they haven't had a 5-star, and really, I mean, Jakari Brown. I mean, he started 2 games for them last year. He's a kid that got out of Georgia in 22. He was a 4-star kid, and then last year they got Emory Williams, who I thought was pretty underrated. He went to the Elite 11 and killed it out there. I think he finished 3rd or 4th or whatever. You were out there. Do you remember seeing Emory?
Yeah.
He did really well. So, I mean, I think they feel really good about Emory Williams as far as his fit in this offense with Shannon Dawson. But you're right. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke's going to be gone after this year, and I think there's certainly a possibility that they could recruit a elite freshman like Aaron Nolan, and he could come in and start right away.
So I want to transition to another quarterback headed to ACC country. Manny did a story this week on Luke Kromenhoek, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I don't know about you guys. I'm a sucker for these stories, whoever does them. You do get the kid. You talk to the quarterback coach. He's got the best arm ever. He can make all the throws. He's so underrated. They offered him. I read that story. I was like, how many Heismans is this guy going to win? And so Manny, I guess you did a good job with the story. So he really, in all seriousness, he really does sound undervalued. He's a 4-star kid, but played defense in high school early in his career, and it really looks like Florida State should be commended for jumping on him early.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the really interesting angle with this is the fact that he grew up, his dad played defensive line at UMass, and, his older brother, I think, is playing D3 ball. He's a defensive lineman, and this kid grew up playing linebacker pretty much until the 7th grade. He went to go see a local quarterback guru, Ken Mastrali, and threw in front of him, and his dad's like, yeah, you're definitely a quarterback. You got to start pursuing this thing. And so he played, I think his 8th grade year was the first year he was full-time quarterback, sort of at the Pop Warner level. And then he ends up going to Benedictine Military School in Georgia in St. Augustine. And he's the backup for 2 years, plays receiver, plays safety. And Florida State offers him when he goes to their camp in 2021. They watched him throw. Actually, your buddy, Kenny Dillingham,
yes, I was going to say
that. He's the dude who watched him throw and was like immediately texting Denny Thompson, who's over at 6 Points in Jacksonville, his quarterback coach, and was like, "Yeah, this dude's for real. We got to offer him." And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see the clips of him throwing. I mean, Luke's his arm strength is pretty ridiculous. It feels like the ball gets there within split seconds. And in fact, Denny Thompson was telling me, and I wrote this in the story, that I guess they have all these QB capture machines. They sort of follow the motion, the speed that comes out of the ball. He says he's already throwing at an NFL level in terms of arm strength. So, I mean, this is a kid who's pretty raw at the quarterback position. He's only started 1 full year. And kudos to Florida State for jumping on him early, because I think Penn State and a lot of other programs would love to have him.
A couple other quarterback notes. Jaden Davis, as expected, committed to Michigan State, to Michigan on Friday.
Oh man,
yeah. So, I was trying to get my wife Heather excited about Spartan football, telling her they got a 5-star. But
did she read my story today?
I will read it to her later today. She'll be very excited to know that her alma mater is spending a lot of time in Oklahoma, and we're going to get to that, Ari, in a little bit. A couple other quarterback notes. Tennessee, Jake Merklinger. Grace wrote about him, saw him at a camp recently. Quarterback from Savannah, top 100 kid, number 55 overall, number 6 quarterback, committed to Tennessee. Grace, was Clemson was on his list, right? But we don't know if I might be getting that wrong there. But he was down to 4. North Carolina, I know, was on the list, but
North Carolina was, yep.
Yeah, Tennessee.
Clemson was or not.
Yeah, Tennessee stacking. Obviously, after Nico, another top 100 quarterback there. And Manny, you saw him this past weekend as well, right?
Yeah, he didn't get one of the Elite 11 finals invites, but you could see the talent. I think that he just kind of had a rough day. There were a couple wobbly balls that he threw in some of the little drills that they had him go through. But, I think he's a kid who, if he wants to come back and compete in another regional, he could probably still earn himself an invite to California. There's 20 guys that end up getting invites, but he wasn't one of the 2 from Florida.
Yeah, Trevor Jackson was one of the other ones, a 3-star, uncommitted 3-star with the 2 quarterbacks. And, I'm glad that the Elite 11, not that it really matters what I think, but they're just not going and picking, that guy's a top 60 guy, we're taking him. We've seen some under the radar kids go to the Elite 11. So it's kind of cool to see them, pick this Trevor Jackson. Any insight on Jackson, where he might be going?
Yeah, a lot of G5 schools interested in him. I know he grew up a Florida State fan. He told me that's really where he would have wanted to go. Obviously, FSU has Luke Kromenhoek.
He should have taken Luke out.
That's what they were kind of joking about afterward, actually. But Trevor, he's got a lot of G5 offers. I think Indiana is one of the Power 5 programs that's on him. You think about Indiana, they got Michael Penix out of Florida before. Obviously ended up transferring to Washington, but I think you look at this kid and his abilities. He's big, he's 6'3", he can run, he's really athletic. And to me, I think he's going to be Power 5 before it's all said and done.
And Deuce Robinson to USC became official, I think, last Thursday. Things were leaning that way. So the class of 2023 is closed now, I believe. All blue chippers are signed. I'm sure there's some stragglers out there, so maybe 3-star kids who haven't signed for whatever reason. But a lot to look ahead to Deuce Robinson. I don't think it's a guarantee that he's playing college football. I mean, I would put it at 90%, but you never know with the MLB draft coming up. With the money there, and will he play college baseball as well? All along, he said he was going to play college baseball. USC has one of their walk-on wide receivers is Austin Ever. I forgot his name. Antonio's writing about him this week. Is a very good baseball player. So there's another kid who's playing 2 sports at USC, and Antonio wrote about that as well. How there's this synergy between the 2 staffs and the workouts and all that stuff. So I think we all think that Deuce Robinson hopefully does play college football. Where he's going to be an instant impact guy as a freshman. I believe all you guys have probably seen him at a camp. Go ahead, Ari. Were you raising your hand?
My wife just came home, and I think my child just woke up, so it's perfect timing.
Does she want to? Does Liv want to join does she have any thoughts on Deuce Robinson?
I was going to take exception to one thing that you said there.
Okay.
Not exception, but I do think that Jaden Davis is probably bigger than a note, so we should come back to that.
Okay. Well, we did talk about a lot last week, but hey, go take the floor. Jaden Davis, go ahead.
That's just a huge step for Michigan.
I
don't know if it's just
Michigan,
me.
One giant step for mankind.
And I wrote a lot about JJ McCarthy in his recruitment. But this is the first time that I can remember that Michigan went into the South and got a 5-star quarterback that had offers from all the big dogs in the South. And it's I have been very critical of Michigan and their recruiting over the course of the past 5-6 years. So I want to make sure that the people hear me clearly, give them their flowers, because it is easy for me to buy into the fact that they are kind of ramping it up a little bit. And if you are discussing or questioning whether or not Michigan can sustain the success, I think that the proof that that is possible is happening now in that Davis commitment. So like I don't know if it's just 5-star quarterback commits. We'll see if he's any good. I think that like I said earlier on about the context of it, the fact that they are recruiting and being successful in recruitments that they wouldn't have been successful 2 or 3 years earlier makes me believe that this can be more of a common pattern. So like I thought that was a huge month for Michigan, and maybe the most successful month that they've had with these types of prospects in a long time. So kudos to you, Michigan. The biggest Ohio State homer on the face of the earth is giving you your flowers.
And I think it tells fans, and who are we to tell fans how to act and about their school, but like a lot of times you just need patience in recruiting. It's like I get the outrage when JJ Carr commits to Notre Dame and when Dante Moore first commits to Oregon then flips to UCLA. Those are 2 guys that you thought you should have, but we don't know who's going to be the best of those 3, and they're not all in the same class, but
this makes it all right.
Yeah, all's well that ends well. And if you would have told a Michigan fan when Carr committed, don't worry. Well, that's what fans do. They worry. So I get it. But it's just you got to play the long game. That's why coaching staffs don't panic, and they don't hopefully read the message boards and freak out. But yeah, no doubt. It happened last week. We expected it to happen. So a huge get.
Well, if I could add one little thing to this, coming out of the state of North Carolina, I mean, they've produced some pretty good quarterbacks here the last few years. Hendon Hooker, originally from the state of North Carolina, Sam Howell, of course, and Drake May, those 3 guys. If he's anywhere near that, I think Michigan could win a national title with him for sure. I've
gone on record as saying, and I think Ari laughed at me because I, of course, talked about another player in the 90s, but like in person, Drake May was one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen in person. In the best is still Danny Werfel to me. Now, Manny, you can appreciate that. You're closer to my age. I thought Danny Werfel was the best college quarterback I ever saw in person.
That's saying a lot. I mean, Werfel, I thought obviously he was special, right? Heisman winner. Florida was great with him there. For me, I don't know. I've got to think about that because I've watched so much football over the years in terms of watching guys actually in person and not on TV. I'll come back to you with that one once I get an answer.
Does it have
Grace,
to be
Grace, who's
person?
better, Deshaun or Trevor Lawrence? Give you 2 seconds to think about it. Go.
Trevor Lawrence.
Okay, there you go.
That was a really easy question.
Okay.
I don't know that there was to be a lot of people that would choose.
I know. I was trying to make Grace sweat, put some pressure on her, but she was.
Wait,
Does it
Joe
have to be
Burrow
in
isn't
person?
the best quarterback you've ever seen? Oh, it has to be in person.
No, I saw him in person actually.
Okay.
And he threw 6 touchdowns in the first half against Vanderbilt too. But as
It's
far
been
as
kind of hard to get Mitch to get an accurate litmus test because they're playing a JV team usually when he sees them in person.
Hey,
I saw Joe Burrow destroy Clemson, so
hey,
he got my vote.
The Danny Werfel game, Florida was number 1. Or you would like this? Florida was number 1, a 43-point favorite at Vanderbilt. Final score was 28-21. So there you go.
I think I got my answer. Peyton Manning.
Okay, Peyton Manning. I saw him
Yeah.
multiple times. Very good as well. Ari, what about you?
Does
Yeah,
watching
Ari
Joe
does.
Burrow before he was good in person count?
No, you have to like the performance, like seeing
Lamar
him.
Jackson.
Oh, that's
Okay.
a good one.
That's a good one.
Good one,
Never
yep.
saw him in person. So
I saw him in person as a fan, actually. I wasn't even covering the game. I went down to a Louisville game to watch him during one of Ohio State's bye weeks when they were home, when he was in college. I don't think.
was there a lady involved?
No.
Okay, thought you might have been like, why did you just we
I did meet a woman named Courtney at the Kentucky Derby in 2014. What's up, girl?
huge Stars Matter fan, no doubt.
Yeah, no, but I don't think there's been a better college player on the face of the entire planet than Lamar Jackson.
I mean, all the people we've mentioned: Joe Burrow, Lamar, Danny Werfel. There, you can't go. Trevor Lawrence, you can't go wrong there. Ari published on Monday was their second monthly recruiting Q&A, which so far 2 for 2 very interesting ones, 2 very different people. Urban Meyer interviewed Barton Simmons, obviously the former lead analyst at 247, now the general manager at Vanderbilt, and some really good questions in there. One thing that he brought up, Ari, I want to get everyone's opinion on. You asked him, like, if you're the czar of recruiting, what rule would you change or what would you do? And he's just basically said, let kids sign whenever they want. Now, I think he didn't say this, and I don't know if it was assumed, but like, you can't be like sophomore year. I would think you'd have to be like going like after your junior year ends. And Ari pushed back. Well, the follow-up question is like, well, what if you were working at Alabama and not Vanderbilt? You probably wouldn't want that answer because we know schools like Alabama come in, swoop in, get a guy like Caden Proctor. What do you guys each think about letting kids sign a letter of intent, let's say anytime after their final day of their junior year in high school? I'm going to start with you, Ari, because I know you have kind of a spin to that too.
Well, anybody who listens to me knows that like I have like a affinity for the programs that recruit the best. And I don't know if that's true or not, but
because you're a winner, Ari.
I don't know if I like a world where Purdue can offer somebody before they have offers and force them to make a decision before they
No
develop.
one's forcing them.
Buddy, they're going to force them. They're going to say, hey, you don't think it's going to happen that way? You want this offer, sign this document. If not, we're going to recruit other people. You don't think that's going to happen everywhere? It's the only way that places like Vanderbilt can get some of the guys before they develop. Like the programs that have the eye, the Texas Techs, Calvin Simpson Hunt would have signed with Texas Tech, right?
Maybe not.
With that
might have gambled on himself. I know what you're saying. Sorry.
I mean, I guess anybody could gamble on themselves and say no, but there's going to be a pressure to sign. And I don't think that it's fair to, like, who are we trying to help here? Like, are we trying to help the students and the student athletes? Are we trying to help?
Kids.
How does that help them?
It takes a burden away from them. They can sign. They don't have to deal with, if they know where they want to go in June, they can sign and get it over with. I'm not saying it's the right. I think it's an interesting rule. Like,
you think it's a big burden to carry a commitment?
I personally think I would love it if they could sign in the summertime right after they make their commitments. And I think obviously
in their visits.
Yeah. After they're done with their visits in July, I think that would be the ideal time to have a signing period to just kind of get at least the elite kids over and done with. The one thing I would love is, and I know we need uniform rules for this across the country, but once you sign, you can start collecting NIL, your senior year, because you're already representing the university, you're helping them recruit. To me, I think that would be the incentive, and it would sort of, I think, end the zaniness of November and December when guys are flipping and you're just having sort of insanity those last 2 months.
Grace, what do you think?
I'm for it.
You're a fair person.
I mean, and you guys have heard me rant about this before. I absolutely hate the uncommittable offer. I think it's just nonsensical and so unfair. And if you're a kid, you shouldn't have to deduce which offer is real and which one is fake. And we see these schools throwing out like 300 offers when they can sign anywhere between 25 and 30 kids. I hate them. And so I think that forcing the adults in recruiting to be really careful with their offers, and I just think it would slow down. Like, you're not going to throw out an offer to someone whose commitment you're not willing to take on the spot. So I'm for it in that regard. I hate the uncommittable offers.
Yeah,
real quick, Ari, kind of like what Manny said though. Like, I like in basketball, there's a signing. Well, it's basically when 90% of the kids sign. Basketball, you sign before your senior season. Football, maybe let them sign 3 days in August, early August, before their senior season starts, and then they could sign afterwards. I don't get the point of the early signing period being 6 weeks before the regular signing period. Go ahead, Ari.
Yes, I don't like the idea that you're removing the late bloomers' potential to get the best possible offer that they could get. But I do agree with Manny. If I were to be in charge of the signing periods, I would remove the December early signing period and I would make one in July going into their senior years for a 3-day period. So instead of being able to sign a national letter of intent any day of the week at any time, I would open that 3-day period for people who are early commitments and like know where they're going to go. And then it removes the pressure to sign, mostly because you only have that 3-day period. And if those 3-day period comes and goes, then you have another year of back to normal recruiting, and then move the national signing day back to February once the season's over. So it's actually an early signing period. You can get kids signed early, but it also doesn't have that looming pressure of sign anytime you get an offer from anybody during the entire process. I think that would kind of meet people halfway. And then, like Manny said, allowing people to collect NIL early on, once they sign, would be an incentive for people to make early decisions, but not necessarily create the pressure or the burden of feeling like you have to sign anytime somebody likes you or you visit somewhere.
Yeah, definitely some rational thinking there. But check out that Q&A, some really good stuff in there. Ari, I thought it was funny you kind of bemoan the fact that you get ripped on in the comments section, and that he used to get, as the guy doing the rankings would just hear from fans all the time. Now he just kind of, he said he doesn't have to answer to the fans in the comments section anymore. And I thought it was funny how he said he would go back and look and see how he did in the rankings, but no one cared because everyone's just so forward thinking and recruiting. So,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate it. It was, he's a really cool dude to talk to because he has a different vision and has to have one for Vanderbilt because I think he could probably make the case that Vanderbilt is most unalike in their conference of anybody in the Power 5 conference in America. Maybe Stanford or Northwestern, I guess, could probably fit into that mold a little bit more. But like when you compare the SEC,
right? I think the difference is the SEC difference versus Wisconsin,
the rest of the Big Ten, and the rest of the Pac-12. Yeah. So I am very excited to see if it works. It might take 6, 7, 8 years, but I'm excited to see if he's right.
I thought it was funny, his perspective on being recruited. He's like, I went on official visits to Duke, Vanderbilt, Furman, and Yale. And he's like, but the only schools that cared if I was going there were Furman and Yale. He's like, I don't think Vanderbilt or Duke really cared when I told them no. I thought that was funny as well. A couple other commitments to get to. Penn State goes into Florida and gets John Mitchell, a cornerback, a top 200 player, and Penn State quietly recruiting the defensive back position very well. I did not know this. You guys might have. Audrey's written about it several times recently that Penn State has never had a first-round defensive back ever.
Wow.
Didn't know that.
Ever. Not just under James Franklin, like ever?
No, ever, because Joey Porter is going to be a first-rounder, and then King next year is a chance to be one too. So that was stunning. So, but they're recruiting that defensive backfield position. And Audrey wrote about there was a connection there with Jacksonville, his position, one maybe his defensive coordinator. There was a connection between Penn State. It wasn't totally random, but as we saw last year, Penn State going into the South to get a commitment is one thing, but as Jerry Seinfeld found out, making the reservation and keeping the reservation, getting the commitment and keeping the commitment are two very different things. So that will be something to monitor. I don't know, Manny, if you have any intel. I know you don't know too much about John Mitchell, but if some of the big three in Florida come after him, that's something to monitor.
Yeah, I know Miami was interested in him, and he's one of those defensive backs. They really need some cornerbacks. The Hurricanes do. Florida.
Yeah, we watched that MTS Middle Tennessee game.
Yeah, everybody remembers that nightmare. And Florida State. I mean, they look like they're going to get Charles Lester. I think the kid out of Sarasota. So he's sort of the top one this year. I know Cormani McLean was that guy last year, but I think Mitchell is in that top tier of, yes, the in-state schools are going to push for him. So yes, you should watch that recruitment all the way up until the end.
And then Alabama gets a 2025 offensive lineman from Georgia, Mason Short, offensive tackle, number 70 overall. And that transitions into the final part of Manny's 5-part series on recruiting and geography. Now, Manny, you're not part of this quiz. It's going to be Ari and Grace are going to guess the in-state percentages for every SEC team. Ari has been on a heater. He was last couple.
He was hot last podcast.
Yeah, he did really well, but a little more.
I mean, I don't want to act like I'm smart. I think that it's kind of very easy to guess.
Just compliment,
but just based on the program stature and where the state is, like the institutional knowledge that you just have of how many players are in a state and how well that team recruits, I think is pretty.
Grace, he's setting you up to look bad.
I know you're setting me up to look like a total moron when I'm like, I don't know the answer to these.
Grace, you could never look like a moron.
Okay, I'll give you the state, and then you guys go both the percentage guess of in-state recruits, just signees only, not transfers or anything like that. JC got JC's count. But most of these schools don't recruit a lot of junior colleges. And over the last 6 signing periods. Now, Manny, do JCs count in these numbers, or were these just raw high school recruits? I think these were just high school.
No, these were all signees, not transfers. So so you were a JC guy, part of the class, it counts.
Yes. Okay, so
you said SEC, right?
Yeah, SEC. Mm-hmm. The last 6 signing classes. Alabama. Okay.
Who's going first?
You go first.
Alabama, I'd say 20%.
Grace.
Oh, I was going to say more like a third. Right? They can get any kid they want in Alabama.
Be confident in your
33%.
Advantage Wasserman. I'm going to keep track. Ari and Grace.
They recruit nationally, and Alabama's not that deep.
It's 23%.
23. Okay, cool.
Okay, Ari, not for you. Arkansas. Grace goes. We'll rotate. Grace goes first.
Yeah, you can't cheat.
Tick, 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 tick. Let's go.
15%.
Ari,
I'd say 30.
20%, 26%. Come on, Grace.
Oh,
Counting on you.
gosh. I know, but I think I'm looking at this backwards. Like, because when I think Arkansas, I mean, I guess they do have to load up on in-state talent because they can't compete nationally that much. But then I'm like, how much talent does a state like Arkansas produce nationally?
Yeah.
What's for you to figure out then?
Oh,
Let's go
gosh.
on.
You know I'm not
Auburn.
good at numbers.
Auburn.
Auburn has got to be higher than Bama, but not that much higher.
What was Bama?
'cause-
23?
Yes.
23. I'll just say around 25% for Auburn.
Grace.
Well, didn't Manny say in his article that Auburn's recruiting Georgia more than they're recruiting the state of Alabama? Like they're signing.
Wait a
all
second.
these-
No hints.
Wait, I read it, Ari.
Yeah.
You can't have read it yet.
I can't even
That's
get these numbers
cheating.
right.
You
and
read
I-
it? You're not
I
getting
knew
it
Grace
right?
would have read the
Over
story.
two.
Ari, you're winning. Okay.
You're literally
No, I
winning.
know, but I'm not.
Hey,
I'm doing
one
this
thing you guys
blindly
need to know
here.
in Stars Matter. Ari rarely reads your stories. He'll
That's not
compliment
true.
them, but he doesn't read them. Grace,
No,
okay.
I definitely
Ari said
read
25.
this. I'm gonna say 20.
It's 25. Ari's up 3-0.
Let's go. Let's go, Grace. Let's
Are the
go.
Yankees winning too, Ari? What's the score?
Oh
of
my
that game?
gosh,
Yeah.
this is so embarrassing.
Wait, this might not be good since it's our first 4-person show, but like loser should have to like be suspended from the show for a week.
Yeah,
or
kick me
something.
out next
Okay,
week.
Florida. Grace, you're first. Florida.
What is this? The past how many years? Not
6
gonna-
years.
6 years.
Ari, you have her flustered. She's
I'm
reeling.
super flustered.
Got you
Okay,
rattled
Florida,
right
I think is getting smoked by Alabama and Georgia, so I think it's gonna be lower than what it should be.
Let's go. We're on a podcast here.
The 30%.
Much higher. There's no way it's only 30. If it's only 30%, then they should disband the program.
Ari,
I'll say 50%.
57.
Oh my god. I'm just gonna start saying the opposite of what I think.
Yeah. Well, you're George Costanza. Be opposite of whatever you think. Georgia. Ari.
Georgia actually isn't that great in their state, but it's the deepest state possible. %33%.
Grace. Quickly.
40.
Grace. 40%.
Yes.
There we go. Grace is
Let's
on the board.
go.
Yes.
On the board.
Dude, that you get 2 points for buzzing the right number too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you
man.
got one exactly right too. Okay, Kentucky. Grace.
Oh, 25.
Ari.
I think I know the number off the top of my head because we talked about how terrible Louisville is. Isn't it 20?
It's 19. Ari gets that one.
Dang it, Ari.
Okay.
So I
LSU.
cheated that time because we talked about it before, I think.
Well, Grace read the story, so you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I swear I really enjoyed it, Manny. Like my comprehension doesn't look outstanding right now, but I thought it was really
LSU.
interesting.
Ari. LSU.
35%.
Grace.
30%.
43.
Let's go.
I was gonna say either 30 or 40.
6-1. Okay. Mississippi
She's
State.
doing.
Grace.
Grace is doing the Price is Right strategy now. She's trying to box me out.
Mississippi
Mississippi
State.
State. Oh, I wrote about Mississippi State a couple months ago and about how they're like they weren't doing that well in state. 25.
Ari.
I'd probably say 40.
55.
What?
Wow. Wow, that's a lot.
I thought all the kids in Mississippi went to Alabama.
Well, the
I know,
good
but you're
ones.
not thinking about all the 2 stars and
You
3
got to
stars
think
that
about
they're
all the
probably
3
saying.
stars
Yes,
and 2
the
stars.
depth,
Yes, I
yeah.
think that'll change your perception of this.
Okay.
I gotta stop
Missouri-
thinking about the top 100 kids and just look at
Stop
all of
thinking
them.
and just guess. Missouri. Who's up? Ari?
Missouri, I'll say 25%.
Grace?
I don't know if I should go higher or lower.
Well, that's your decision.
20.
28.
This is turning out to be like an SEC game between Alabama and Vanderbilt.
I know.
Watch it.
I'm,
I'll ban you from the show too, man.
I can never show my face on this show again.
Ole Miss. The University of
who's
Old
first?
Mississippi.
Again, who's first? Grace?
Grace.
38.
Ari.
24.
Grace. It's 33.
Finally, let's
Good
go.
job, Grace.
Ari, just throw a couple, make her feel good, okay?
Yeah.
South Carolina, Grace. Now, this is your state.
This is my
If you-
state.
These are your
Pressure's
people.
on.
Beamer's doing very well in state, I will say.
He's only been the coach for 2 years. Hint.
Hint. Okay. Oh, this is a good point.
Why are we hinting? Why are you giving her a hint?
40. No. Ooh, should I go higher?
Nope.
45. 45.
Great. Ari?
You went from 40 to 45 because I would have
Yes.
gone lower.
All right,
I'm
no,
gonna
give me
say-
back 40. Give me 40 again.
I'm going to say 30%.
29.
Oh,
Tennessee.
That's
Tennessee.
how
Ari?
much I believe in Shane Beamer. This should be an
Okay.
endorsement
Yeah.
of my belief in the
Okay,
Gamecocks right
spin it
now.
any way you want.
Yeah, thanks.
Tennessee. Ari.
I'd say 20% for Tennessee.
Grace.
25.
26. There you go,
There we
Grace.
go. There we go.
Wow.
A&M. A&M. Grace.
Wow.
Ooh. A&M. 40.
No, try again. There's no way it's only 40.
Well, they got to split it with all those other schools in Texas.
A lot
I
of
know, but
kids.
there's like it's like 5 states in one.
How national was their class in the all-worldly class a few years ago?
All right, I'll just guess. I'll say.
All right, fine. Give me 45.
Okay.
I'm gonna say 68. Almost said. I'll say 70.
60. One more. Vanderbilt.
Grace, next time don't read the story.
Yeah.
I know. Honestly, Manny, I gave you an awesome and everything. Like,
I know. I appreciate that.
Am I
Yeah.
first?
Yeah, you're first.
Vanderbilt doesn't recruit in state very well, do they, Mitch?
That's
10%.
Grace.
15.
16. There you go. Grace got the
All right, Grace.
London Humphreys
got-
for the win.
All right. Final tally. Ari 8. Grace 4. I wish we would have started this when we had the 4-person pod. This is my favorite segment. Although Grace, you let us down.
That was brutal. Yeah, I could never play this game again.
Yeah, well,
No, well, we're gonna play it again next week. Don't
We're
we have the
gonna
Big Ten left?
we're gonna
We
do
did
the,
did we
yeah,
do the
we-
Big Ten?
we've done them all. We're gonna do the Sun Belt. Manny, start doing some research.
All right, there we
Um,
go.
Manny, what surprised you the most in that story?
You know, it's weird because I felt like like the other conferences, like the SEC is more predictable because they get all the best players, right? So you kind of have a pretty good feel for the SEC, at least I do anyway, with how much we report on it. But yeah, I mean, Vanderbilt only 16%. I mean, Tennessee's a pretty good producing state in terms of elite players, and they don't have a whole lot of, top recruits from, I think I wrote in the story, 2018 or 2016 was the last time they signed a top a blue chip recruit from their own state. 2018, that's what I wrote in the story. And yes, it's Vanderbilt. I understand they've struggled for years, but like you figured they'd get a few kids out of their own home state, but that hasn't happened. I think Georgia, how much everybody just raids the state of Georgia.
Yeah,
I know
Ari and I
that-
have
I
talked
think-
about that, and you mentioned it. It's like as good as Georgia is, and as well as they've recruited, like their in-state recruiting, even the 5 stars, isn't what you'd think it would be. But no, we're not knocking them because they get great players every year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that Georgia is able to go so easily into Florida and win, that's another one. I think I wrote out of the top 100 players, they signed 16 out of Florida, which is the most. I think Alabama's next on the list with 13. And I think Miami's third with 8. So you just sort of see how why Alabama and Georgia are so dominant every single year. They get the best players from every state, and it's easy for them. Meanwhile, you go into other states like Texas, right, where Texas A&M comes from. A&M's done a pretty good job there. I think they're second in terms of top 100 players behind Texas. But yet really the results don't show on the field, especially last year. So I don't know. I mean, like there's so many different ways you can look at this. And to me, I just sort of enjoyed doing the research because I wanted to have the data. I wanted to have the actual numbers in front of us to help us with a lot of the stories that we'll be writing in terms of, just recruiting confidential and everything else. I thought, why not just have this somewhere? And now we do.
One dynamic that I'm really interested in over the next few years is Kentucky and Louisville. Like Louisville had a good class last year. A lot of it was in California. I think there's a lot of NIL stuff going on there. Well, Jeff Brom's a Louisville grad. He's coached in the Midwest at Purdue. Louisville's been non-existent. Maybe the lowest in-state percentage of a P5, especially among a public, non-private. So I'd be shocked if he does not make that more of an emphasis in-state coming down to the mid-state in Tennessee? There's a ton of players going into Ohio. I'm sure Purdue recruited Ohio. And how does that affect Kentucky? Kentucky's kind of got it rolling right now in recruiting there. But I think that's an interesting dynamic. And Ari, this goes without saying, but all the numbers that Manny compiled, like where schools recruit the most out of state, and for Kentucky, it's Ohio. And does Jeff Brom kind of follow that model? Because Kentucky's obviously it's on the Indiana border, but it's close to Ohio too. So that what are your thoughts on that dynamic there?
Yeah, no, I mean it's the thing about it is that like Kentucky is basically an in-state school for Ohio, right? Like I mean they've tried so hard and for so long with the same staff members to make that an emphasis. Like I don't know.
I mean, Ohio's an in-state. For Kentucky recruits Ohio like it's in-state. Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
I don't know what I said. Did I say it like backwards?
You didn't say that, but
I have this ailment, and I don't know what it is, but I think things, and then when it comes out, it doesn't match what I'm thinking. And then I forget how I said it, and then I just like
that's good for someone who's on 5 podcasts a week to not be able to clearly discuss things, but it's okay.
I mean, I don't know that I would fear Purdue if I were them.
Well, it's not Purdue, it's Louisville.
I'm sorry, Louisville.
I would. I mean, Louisville's they've had very good teams, and they've got, I'm not saying they're going to start. I think Louisville will be more of a threat to Kentucky than they've been. I'll just say that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's true because their head coach makes them sexy temporarily. But like my thing is, can Louisville continue to like recruit nationally as well they have been? Like, I mean, I don't know if you go back and look at the percentage of their class that came from Kentucky. Do you have Manny's spreadsheet open? Come on, let's rip this going.
Yeah, what was their percentage in California last year?
10%.
Louisville was the lowest percent of any
in-state recruiting numbers.
Yeah.
I can look it up here. Let me go to my trusty spreadsheets.
How many did they have in California?
You better have a
Mitch?
fingerprint
Like 4 or
thing.
5?
Grace, what was that?
How many did they have in California last year?
Like 5 or 6?
That's what I thought. They went into St. John Bosco and did a lot of damage there.
Yeah. So
well, I would say West Virginia and Louisville are the two that probably have the lowest percentages. I mean, in terms of Power Fives. Let me call it.
And there were more people at our Super Bowl party this year than live in West Virginia, so I think that kind of makes sense. I mean, it's just a very small population state, so
right.
Like, what's Louisville's excuse? I don't even know. Like, and then the who wrote the Kentucky
recruiting
was
confidential?
Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
Wasn't every high school coach in Kentucky just saying that Louisville doesn't even come there?
He's like I've never even heard of their coach Scott Satterfield. I don't know who.
Who is this human? So
yes,
which is, by the way, the fact that he got hired at Cincinnati to replace Fickle. If he doesn't figure that out at Cincinnati, it's going to get ugly there. That's the whole thing there.
Yeah. No, I mean, no doubt. Especially moving to the Power 5, moving to Big 12, need to up their recruiting, although they were recruiting basically like a Power 5 the last few years. Okay, we've got one mailbag question. It was just via Twitter. Josh on Twitter, and I thought this was a good question for us to kind of talk about the subject. I would love if this week's show you guys could go over the difference in the recruiting sites and the composite. How could sites be so different, and which ones are more trusted than the other? And the question was basically Jordan Marshall, I believe, is number 3 on Rivals, number 13 on 247, maybe for running backs. Why is this so different? My point would be, first of all, it's early in the cycle. And second, I'm glad there are big differences that like evaluators, and maybe you could see like Manny saw, was it Merklinger, the quarterback?
Yeah.
Let's see, he maybe saw him on a bad day, and another is if that was some evaluators saw him there and someone sees him on a better day. But I would not want groupthink among all these recruiting sites. So I think it's good that there's varying levels. Now, if we're at
also
signing
too,
day,
Mitch.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Not to interrupt you, but like when you think about how many recruitable running backs there are in America, that's not that big of a difference. Like 3 and 13 seems dramatic when you think about it like that, but when you think about the fact that the list is 300 people long, it's probably not that big of a difference.
Yeah, no doubt.
Am I onto something there?
Yeah, and you guys have been to camps more than I have. I've been to none. So like you like it could be a win, whatever. Just kids have bad days, and certain evaluators look for different things. So I think it's like I keep saying, it's a positive. I don't know which sites are are better. You know, they all have, you know, maybe different parts of the country. Someone's got a better Midwest scout, and I don't know. We don't know the backgrounds of all these guys, but
I think it's just about staff size, really. Like how much resource are you dedicating to the evaluation process? And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I know, not to disparage ESPN and what they do there, I know that they just have a much smaller staff than 247 does. And it's just common sense to know that if you have an army of reporters and not an army, that you're probably going to take the army. And that's why we use the composite so much, because all those differences get averaged out. And, you know, most of the time those averages are really what tells the true story. So, you know, I'm glad that there are, like you said, Mitch, multiple resources and people who all don't think alike. And then over the course of time, those averages come down and, you know, have a pretty accurate picture of the way things turn out. So, you know, I think it's a pretty good system.
Grace, I want your list of top 10 long snappers for on Sunday for a story. Can you?
Hey, I did see some at the what was it? Under Armour game 2 years ago. Seeing those guys is always so fun, because I'm like, they are the first to admit, like, no one knows who they are. They're just chilling at these.
Then there's people that evaluate them like that. Slight tangent. One of the former color analysts for Vanderbilt Radio, I used to work with, John Gromos, who was quarterback my freshman year. He was a senior. He got this back when the NFL was 12 rounds. He was a 12th round draft pick of Seattle, and he went to camp as a holder and a backup quarterback. And he just, you know, he held in college, and he got there first day, and he did something, put the ball down, and he said he got railed on. Like that, it's so, especially at the professional level, long snapping and holding is such an exact science. I actually listened to a podcast, a Freakonomics podcast, on long snappers and how these guys hold on to their jobs for 18, 20 years and how anonymous they are. So it's just, there's people, obviously there's only 32 long snappers in the world and at the NFL level. And it's a pretty good gig if you can keep it. You should start working on that. You're only 35. You could.
I feel like everybody always says how awesome it would be, but like if you fuck up one time,
oh yeah,
like that's it for you. You know what I mean? Like think about the margin of error, like when it comes to that, like being perfect, and like they're basically robots, and most of the times they just nail it right. But like, I don't want to be the guy that, like, I don't want to be the Bill Buckner of long snapping. You know, that would like
right. Getting railed out in the comments section is one thing, Ari, that you can handle that, but just having a whole fan base and a whole country know about your screw up.
The thing about the comments is that I don't agree with most of them, so like I can live with that. Like if you mess up and cost your team a game, that's an indisputable fact that you're the loser in that situation. Yeah. And I don't know if I would handle that well.
Yeah. I've shared this with Grace. I've had this story idea. I think I asked Andy Staples actually this, and he kind of debunked it. Like, I'd love to go to each college and ask like some of the star players if they could name the starting long snapper
on their own team.
Yeah, on their own team. Like, there's 100+ kids on a team. And I asked Andy that last time I saw him, because, you know, played at Florida one year, and he seemed to think that most people would know. Maybe not a backup walk on, but
I'll tell you this: when I was covering Ohio State, fans were completely aware of who they were recruiting at long snapper.
Wow,
really?
Like there were stories written about it for sure. Yeah,
that is wild.
Okay, I mean, people are obsessed with their team. You know, I don't want to know.
Yeah. All right, ready for a little trivia?
I might sit this one out, honestly, after my last showing. Jeez.
It wasn't that bad.
I was doing, it was pretty bad. As I'm doing some research for this, I think there might have been a very similar question I've asked in the past, or something, the exact question or whatever, but we've had, we've been doing this almost, 18 months?
Yeah.
It was a year and a half or 2.5 years.
Could have had 2 babies.
Yeah. So.
You see how uncomfortable he got?
No, I was
okay.
Actually, I barely heard what you said.
I said we could have had 2 babies.
Right, 18 months. I understand how it works.
Yeah.
You have a kid, and then 9 months later, you could have, although not really 9 months.
I'll be honest with you. I honestly don't know how people have 2 kids in 18 months.
I spaced mine out 4 years apart.
3 years.
Good, yeah.
Okay. There have been 7 teams in the modern recruiting era dating back to 2000. 7 teams. This is FBS, not just GP5, that have signed only 1 5-star. Not 0, not 2 or more. How many of those can you name, and can you name the 5-star?
Wow.
Wait,
so that's a really difficult question.
This is from 2018?
No. This is from 2000 on in the modern
2000
recruiting.
on. Okay.
Man,
In
that's
the
very
mo-
Ari of you, like to just not listen to the question.
I didn't get
You're off to a
okay.
great start as a co-host. So this one's obviously you're probably not going to know, but it's more of like a discussion. The names will sound familiar, but can you? There's one there. Okay, there's one G5 on here, soon to be P5. That's the hint.
Okay, Ed Oliver, Houston.
Yes. Okay, see if I can get some hints. There's one school that made the college football playoff this year.
TCU.
Yes. Who is the player?
It's a running back. Cannot remember his name.
He
off
does
the
not
top
play
of my
for
head.
TCU anymore.
Right. He transferred out.
It's not
Is it
Zach Evans.
Zach Evans. Okay.
Yep.
He signed with TCU
Yes.
because of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Here's another one. This guy was the reason for the I Am a Man press conference.
Mike
so
Gundy?
Oklahoma State
Oklahoma
is the
State.
Yes.
answer, but I don't know.
It was this guy got railed on by the media, or he thought he got railed on.
Oh, he was the player, the subject.
How
of the
was
news
that kid's
article?
name?
No, Mike.
Can I
Mike
chime in for
Zimmerman has
Mike?
got some DGB at Mizzou. No. They got the
He
kid
said-
2 years ago.
Wait,
who's a-
Oklahoma State has only signed one 5-star
Yes.
in 23 years?
Yeah.
What?
What's his name? What's his name?
That's the question.
We should relegate them like
Bobby
soccer.
Reed.
Yeah, clearly we didn't know
Bobby
the
Reed.
answer. So
Right,
yeah,
Bobby
okay,
Reed. Okay.
Bobby
Yeah.
Reed.
Okay, so we got a couple of one of them plays for a P5 in the state of Georgia.
Georgia Tech.
Georgia
Yes.
Tech.
Is that
Um,
Georgia?
Yeah, no, it's not full. Okay, one of the best players at his position in the history of football.
Calvin Johnson.
You got it.
All right.
Okay, one of them is a school we've just talked about a lot. They've got a new coach. They're located in the state of Kentucky.
Louisville.
Louisville?
Yeah. You've talked about this in the past because I know you looked this up once.
They're 5-star.
Is
They've
the
won
five-
5-star class of 2003.
Are you saying that I should know this?
Well, I think we've talked about him in the past, or you mentioned him in a mailbag, or you mentioned him like. I don't think you'll be surprised when I give you the name. Michael
don't give it
Bush.
to me.
Michael Bush, running
Michael
back.
Bush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 more to go. Boston College had one.
Wow. Wasn't Matt Ryan, was it?
No. Yeah, I don't think you guys will get this. Linebacker.
William Green.
Luke Kuechly. Just kidding. He's like a
No.
2-star.
Brian Toll.
Brian
Yeah.
Toll, right?
Yeah.
California,
That's a
right.
really hard question
Yeah.
to really welcome our new friends into this thing.
Yeah, hey,
I know.
tough
I might
love.
not come back.
Yeah,
It's kind of a bizarre way to start this thing off. An unanswerable question. Okay.
Okay, one more. How about this question? Grace, what is the nickname of the school that you covered for 5 years?
The Tigers.
Okay, there you go. So now you feel better about yourself for next week. Okay. This
Oh my gosh. I was like, where is he going
yeah, I
with
know,
this?
you're looking at me. I thought it was a pretty easy question.
You got one right.
Yeah.
When
Okay.
Liv starts learning about college football, those are going to be the questions that you ask
Yeah.
her.
There's one more. I knew this, but you'll probably be surprised that the school actually has signed a 5-star.
Hmm.
Is
It's
it
in
Power
Pac-12.
5?
Pac-12.
Washington State.
Close.
Colorado. They just signed what's his face.
No, Colorado has like 3 or 4, surprisingly, and before this year.
Oregon State.
Yes, this kid was from Corvallis.
Mm.
I wrote about this
Yeah.
once.
Yeah. No. Mike Zimmerman says Jaquiz Rogers. No, he was 3-star, I believe, from Texas. Might have been.
There's
4.
no way anyone remembers
No,
his
if you
name.
don't
He was
know
an
it, you don't know it.
Was
Like,
he an offensive tackle?
Yeah, offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Isaac Samolo, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in-state kid. So, yeah, that was. Some of these questions are gettable, and some of them
Oh,
are
so
just for
hard.
like discussion topics. So to get the conversation going.
Yeah,
so.
that was good. Ed Oliver should have been the only one that we could have.
Zach
without
Evans,
the hit.
maybe if you thought about
Yeah,
it.
Zach Evans is a good one too. Good job, Manny. Grace, proud of you.
Yeah. Here for a good time.
Tigers, go Tigers.
Grace. Grace, I have a trivia question for you before we go.
Let's hear it.
Is the letter P in the word Clemson?
No, but this is a serious debate about outsiders who there's a lot of people pronounce it with a P, and then some people not in Clemson pronounce it with a Z, like Clemson. Yeah.
So another Clemson, and you get some. I've heard some national people who follow college sports say Old Miss. They say Old Miss.
Oh,
Mhm.
whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Auburn.
Mike-
says
Auburn.
Mike Zimmerman.
Auburn, that's a good one. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I've got a bonus trivia question for you.
Okay.
My child is awake, but we're going to do this anyway.
Okay.
There are 5 colleges that play sports in Division I basketball that are named after a color. Can you name the schools? Or the school's name is shared with a color.
The nickname
Yeah.
North
Browns.
Texas Mean Green.
4. It's 4. That's wrong. The name
No.
of the school.
Oh, the
So
name of the
Brown is
school.
correct. That's
Okay.
one.
Brown is correct. Auburn.
Yep.
Right.
That's also right. There's 2 more.
Mhm.
Because I've heard the question the other way. This is a good one.
This
Yeah.
is a good one, Ari.
Uh,
I don't know.
Clemson?
Colorado. I don't.
Colorado's not it. No.
Well,
IUPUI. Wow. Cornell's not a color. Colgate's not a color.
No. It's a toothpaste.
Is Pepperdine a color?
No.
Do they play basketball?
One's going to annoy you.
oh boy.
Like one we should be getting. It's obvious.
I don't know. It's not. It's obviously a color, but it's not something that you would come to your mind. I don't think.
I have a pretty good grasp of like the entire college basketball landscape, so no school's gonna.
It's a military academy.
Army.
Navy.
Navy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Army
that's the
Green.
third. And then the last one is Sienna.
Ah, that's a good one.
Ah, that's a good one.
So the
yeah.
4.
What color is sienna?
I had to Google. It's like a
I've
turquoise.
literally
I
never
think.
even heard of this.
Yeah.
I just Googled sienna and the Toyota van came up.
So Ari, would you like to do your thing?
That went well, guys. Thank you so much for joining us in the new expansive galaxy of the stars. Stars matter. We will catch you guys next week. See ya.